Unfortunately, predators come in all shapes and forms and would do anything to gain your trust, even pose as a friend. In today's world where more of our lives are on the internet thanks to the ongoing pandemic, staying safe online has become increasingly more important, and the consequences for failing to do so may even be dire. If you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious, don't forget to tap the subscribe button and bell notification. Give the like button a tap as well, so it doesn't feel left out. As a female who's been on the game for 15 years now, I've met a load of creeps, but only a few ever made me feel unsafe. To start off, I've always had a laptop since I was in high school, a luxury back then I worked hard for. My mom almost took my money I earned for drugs, but luckily, money I made in tips were in cash, so it was easier to hide it from her. At first, my mom was mad I bought myself a laptop, but she soon forgot, like everything else. My dad could care less, and my older brother already had his own. I started playing World of Warcraft with him at 14, and back then, girls who played the game were unheard of. So, I got the usual creeps who usually backed off after hearing my age, or they were young as well. But not this guy. This guy loved that I was underage. I was about 16 and used to creepy guys at this point, no longer a noob at the game or at fending off the creeps, and it was no surprise when a guy in the guild started hitting on me. Now, I was 16, dumb, young, horny, and stupid, but I knew I wasn't going to find love on World of Warcraft, where you knew no one in real life. Plus, I had the ultimate crush on a guy I could not have, because he was my brother's best friend, but in my mind back then, I only wanted him. So it was easy to turn down guys, despite being desperate as hell for one guy. But all of that changed after my brother's friend went off to college. I had a part-time job with my brother's friend, but girls at work surrounded him and I became demoralized. I thought I'd never find love. Cue 19-year-old guy in World of Warcraft who made me feel wanted. I had a camera phone so I could send and post pictures at that age, and back then I mostly used Facebook, MySpace, and PhotoBucket. I lost a lot of weight my sophomore year, so I confidently posted bikini pics and sexy pictures, thinking I'd lure the attention of my brother's 19-year-old friend. So when this guy, who was also 19, liked me, it did not faze me. He looked the part in his photos, and his younger brother was my age. So I thought. He was extremely attractive in his photos, and even proved it was him in pictures by holding items I asked for. He started paying my WoW subscription, which in the long run I realized it was to get my home address and real name. I was so stupid and heartbroken over my brother's friend. Years of teaching myself online safety and the ability to be strong against flirts was all but lost in the fog. We'd talk for hours on Ventrilo, and he'd make me feel pretty. I was completely blinded by this point. He sent me gifts, and I didn't even question how he had my address. Then he offered to drive and pick me up, as only then did I suddenly get cold feet. I had a good friend on WoW, someone my brother met at PAX, and joined the guild and is still one of my best friends to this day, though we both aren't fond of my older brother. He's 6 years older than me, but has never creeped on me. He was more like the protective brother I lacked. He got onto it through conversation and was my words of wisdom in a time I was lacking any of my own. He saw something was fishy when I couldn't. I told my friend I was scared to meet him because, dumb teenager logic, I thought he would not like me. My friend chimed in that I shouldn't meet anyone off the internet at my age. I told him about the gifts, and I swear I've never been scolded like that in my life. Not even by my own parents. But he always cared like that. He wondered why I would give my address to someone I never met, and the expensive gifts I got were not something the average 19-year-old could afford. None of this ever clicked for me, of course, because I was lonely and trying to prove, I don't know, to myself or my crush or something, I could get a boyfriend. So I told the guy it wasn't wise to meet in person and that my parents said I wasn't allowed to. That's when it all went dark. At first, it was pestering over and over, making me feel guilty over the gifts he gave me and encouraging me to defy my parents. While he kept bothering me, it never once occurred to me he'd lose it. My friend was worried about the guy having my address to the point of going as far to drive the 11 hours to my house and explain the situation to my dad because I refused to tell him out of fear of getting in trouble at the time, all while taking his spring break in my state instead of his own with his friends. There's a reason he's still one of my best friends. He has a little sister of his own as well, and she's my age, so his protective nature is justified. Eventually, he made me block the guy, and that was that. This pissed the guy off. He'd go on different accounts to accuse me of gold digging and using him. Luckily, my friend was smart enough and had the foresight to change my WoW password, and even paid for my account for me, taking this guy off it entirely, as one of this guy's threat was to delete it. But it didn't end there. It got worse, as he'd consistently find ways to message me and tell me how horrible I was, till about a month had passed. I was walking home from school, about a 2-mile walk in the wealthy suburbs of New England, which I had done for years. Many kids did, because it was very safe. It was a town with no crime in it, or the surrounding towns as well. Without a second thought, I took off with my 100-pound backpack, put my earphones in, and started my 20-minute walk home. It was cold, so I had earmuffs over my earphones, only drowning out the sound more too. I swear if I could talk to myself as a kid, I'd probably just slap myself for stupidity. Because the WoW guy knew I walked home every day. We've talked about it. I can't believe he knew my address, and I never thought twice about it. At about halfway home, in between songs, I heard a vague crunching sound of tires rolling over gravel on the road slowly. I turned around to see a tinted black car. You couldn't see much of the person in front. I jogged out of the driveway I was standing in front of, assuming it was waiting to turn in. But it didn't turn. The roads were dead and it didn't make sense for him not to go around. I swear, the saying that you go cold when you're terrified is absolutely true. It could have been a summer's day at 95 degrees and my bones would still be cold. My heart just sank and my breathing was uncontrollable. I felt like I had no control over my body as I realized this guy was following me. My blood truly ran cold and my hands shook as tears formed and my skin felt tight. My body felt like it wasn't ready to fight or flight, but simply freeze there and die. It only got worse as the second time I turned my head to see the car stop. I stopped. My world stopped. I couldn't stop staring, just frozen and breathing like all my school books were on my chest, crying silently. My eyes hurt with no tears or sound as I just stood there. The door opened after what felt like hours, but only seconds, maybe a minute had passed. And it was him. It was the attractive guy from the photos. Not a catfish, but something seemed different. At first I thought it was his angry expression, but soon realized he was definitely not 19, more like 30 plus. I could barely think over the loud sound of my heart racing as it froze me in place. I thought I was about to throw up as he spoke to me, told me to get in the car or he'd light my house on fire and kill my dog in front of me. I honestly just couldn't move, couldn't reach for my phone. His words terrified me. In the moment, we both failed to notice the little old lady on her porch watching this play out. Suddenly, I heard her yell, "Get away from that girl right now before I burn you alive!" We both turned to meet her eyes, pissed off, small lady about 60 or 70 with white hair. I think she noticed my frozen in fear state as she told me to get over to her quickly. Like that, I ran over to her, tossing off my heavy brick of a backpack. It was obvious he was unsure what to do next. He just stood there and watched me run to her. Must have been a sight, this tiny, thin old lady standing in front of a teenage girl, yelling at this man to go away. And just like that, Savior number 2 joined the battle as her husband stepped out. He looked like he'd been through a war or two, with a shotgun of all things, and a booming voice, gun pointed, saying, "I've shot and killed men for lesser reasons. You better leave now." He got into his car and drove off as I simply collapsed. All that fear just came out as I cried harder and harder while my mind sifted through the past few months of mistakes. After calming me down enough to speak in non-hyperventilating words, the little old lady asked me if I knew him. I told her kind of, but only online from a video game, not in real life. Of course, explaining it wasn't easy. She got on the phone with the school counselor, who turned out to be her daughter, and told her my name. I was well known to her daughter, ironically, but it was only 250 or so kids in the school, and the town itself was small. A lot of the staff at our school had family in town. Kids at school they were related to either by their own children or their siblings' children. It was the kind of town if you didn't leave by a certain age, you were stuck there. So honestly, it seemed ironic, but entirely not a huge surprise. The counselor was well aware of my family and my mom's drug addiction, as child services had been involved a few times. She came by in 10 minutes to pick me up and asked me a ton of questions, of course. I didn't want to involve police. I was scared of being taken away from my parents again. For your information, foster care was worse than a drugged out mom on prescriptions. We weren't rich, but we were better off than many. Though my mom worked, my dad kept my mom on a tight budget to keep her from buying prescriptions from Canada she wasn't prescribed, hence her trying to take my money. She knew all of this and knew that even though I had it rough, I was better off than in foster care, which was a gamble with losing odds at best. Plus, 2 more years and I'd be off to college anyway. So we didn't involve the cops. But she made me promise to take the bus every day and to inform my dad of the situation. She also called my dad at work to inform him and had a teacher make sure I got on the bus every day till I graduated. It really sucked, but I understood. If it ended there, it would be nice, but there's still a bit more, and I'm sorry for the length. It's late at night, and I'm recalling from memory and typing on my phone. Thank you so much to those of you who made it to the end of the video. Part 2 of this story is coming out next Monday, so remember to subscribe and stay tuned. Goodbye, Darklings.